Get her out of here. This space isn't for her kind." The words didn't slip. They landed, sharp, rehearsed, and loud enough for every head in the Charleston Grand's presidential lounge to turn. Edward Huxley didn't whisper. He said it with the confidence of someone who thought the room belonged to him, who believed the woman standing across the marble lobby couldn't possibly belong there. She wore a black blouse, no jewelry, low heels, smooth posture. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that she was black and silent and staring him directly in the face. Edward straightened his shoulders like he'd won something. "Security will be here in under a minute," he added, tapping his headset. "In the meantime, I need you to step out of this lounge and wait in the general guest area. What would you do if someone kicked you out of your own legacy? Tell us where you're watching from." The woman didn't budge. Her hands were at her sides. Her breath was even. But her silence made the room feel smaller. 3 guests on the leather couches turned fully to watch. "She didn't even raise her voice," one whispered. Another was already filming. "Mom," Edward repeated, his tone dipping into smug. "The Charleston Grand's presidential lounge is for legacy-tier guests only. That means long-standing patrons, people who are part of this hotel's story. If you want to inquire about general reservations, the front desk is just across the hall." He smiled, and then, with theatrical precision, stepped behind the concierge podium. "Let's make this easy. Your name?" The woman's voice was calm. "Lancaster." Edward blinked, smirked. "Excuse me?" "Lancaster," she repeated, sliding a sleek black credit card and ID across the counter. "Reservation under my name." Darren, the junior desk staffer, glanced at the screen in front of him. His eyes widened slightly. The name N. Lancaster was clearly there, tagged with an executive override designation. But Edward stepped directly in front of the monitor before Darren could speak. "A black card," Edward said, lifting it between 2 fingers. "Interesting." His tone made it sound anything but. "Darren!" he called over his shoulder. "Run a code white fraud check just in case. You know how it is. Some people dress the part, but they don't really belong." Darren hesitated. Edward leaned in slightly. Now, a woman in pearls, seated near the lounge fireplace, lowered her drink and said, "I don't like the way this feels." Across the room, a man pulled out his phone and whispered, "Start live streaming." "Security is on the way," Edward informed the room. "We've had incidents before. People sneaking into restricted spaces with fake cards, pretending to be someone they're not." He turned back to the woman. "This won't take long." She stared at him, then at the card, still dangling in his hand. "If you damage that card, you'll be explaining it to a federal auditor," she said evenly. Edward laughed. "Okay, ma'am. I think you're confused about who has the authority here." And that's when Margot Dawson stepped into view. Assistant Guest Services Manager, clipboard in hand, corporate smile fixed in place. "Hi there," she chirped. "Let's not escalate things. If you could just come with me to the main lobby, we can sort this out with fewer eyes on us." "I'm standing exactly where I should be," the woman replied. Margot lowered her voice. "I'm not trying to make this a thing." Too late. And then Margot reached out. Her hand landed lightly on the woman's arm. Professional, polite, and a mistake. The moment skin met fabric, the room changed. Phones came up. Mouths dropped. Someone said, "Did she just touch her?" A voice called from the couch. "That's not allowed." She didn't even do anything. Margot immediately withdrew her hand, now realizing the optics were against her. "I need you to walk out of this room," Edward said again, firmer now, more defensive than before. Because if you don't, you're going to leave me no choice. The woman smiled. It wasn't warm. I think you've already made your choice, she said. Then she lifted her wrist slightly and tapped the face of her smartwatch. A signal left the building. It travelled 510 miles to Washington, D.C., where Tamara Green sat at a secure terminal inside Lancaster Heritage Group headquarters. Her monitor blinked. Gridlock protocol / authenticated override. N. Lancaster, Region 2, Properties X7, Ethics freeze initiated. Tamara didn't hesitate. She picked up the secure line. She just authorized it, she told the compliance director beside her. 7 properties. Gridlock is active. Back in Charleston, Edward had no idea what he'd just triggered. Now you're going to threaten staff? He snapped. You think you can walk in here with attitude and a fake name and bully your way into a premium suite? You're talking too much, the woman replied, her tone still composed. And you're about 5 seconds away from learning what authority really looks like. She pulled a second phone from her handbag and tapped one icon. The lounge speaker system crackled once, then came a clear, confident voice. This is Tamara Green, Executive Ethics Officer for Lancaster Heritage Group. Per emergency override code, staff members Edward Huxley, Margot Dawson, and all Level 1 and 2 executive accounts at Charleston Grand are now suspended. Your access badges have been revoked. You are required to exit the premises immediately. This action has been logged under Horizon Sync Ethics Grid and submitted for federal compliance review. Margot stepped back instinctively. Her badge buzzed. Red. Edwards did the same. He looked down, eyes widening. Darren. He stepped away from the desk entirely. One guest stood up and clapped once. Another joined, then another, and finally, the woman, the one they tried to remove, stepped forward. My name, she said clearly, is Noelle Lancaster. Gasps. Someone dropped their phone. Another guest whispered, Oh my God, she owns the place. Noelle looked around the room, looked at the staff who failed, the guests who stayed silent, the ones who spoke up, and she said simply, I didn't come here to prove anything. I came to see what my silence would cost. Turns out, it's time you can't buy back. No one in the Charleston Grand Lounge moved at first. Not Edward, who stood frozen with his badge blinking red. Not Margot, who clutched the edge of the front desk like it might anchor her to reality. And not the guests, who had witnessed something shift in the room, though they couldn't yet name it. A few whispered, a few backed away, most just watched. Noelle Lancaster stayed still. Her posture hadn't changed since the moment she walked in. She didn't need to. That was what power looked like when it didn't have to raise its voice. Is this real? Margot asked Darren, who had taken several quiet steps toward the back hallway. Darren didn't respond. His eyes were on Noelle. Noelle glanced at him. Briefly, he looked away. One of the guests, middle-aged in a navy suit, stepped closer to Edward. Sir, he said, gesturing toward the blinking badge, I think you need to leave. Edward turned to him in disbelief. Do you have any idea what's happening here? The guest raised his eyebrows. Yeah, I do. That's why I'm still filming. Another voice chimed in, this one from the pearl-wearing woman near the fireplace. She warned you. Edward spun back to Noelle. You think this little stunt changes anything? You think pulling some tech trick makes you the authority here? Noelle didn't even blink. I don't need to think it, she said. I built it. His brow furrowed. What? She looked him straight in the eye. You're not just standing in the wrong place. You're standing inside a system you no longer control. That silence again, different this time, like the entire room was recalibrating around her presence. A chime came from the desk computer. Darren hesitated, then reached forward to read the notification. His face paled. He turned to Edward. "You've been fully locked out of the internal management system," he said quietly. "Your credentials have been flagged under Horizon Sync's active audit protocol. 7 properties in Region 2 are now under ethics lockdown." Edward stared at him. You can't be serious." But Noelle was already dialing. She raised her phone to her ear and spoke clearly. "Tamara, pull the access logs. I want every behavior report from the last 90 days. Guest complaints, staff interactions, ethics flags. Prioritize any flagged by junior staff and any dismissed by executive tier." On the other end, Tamara's voice came through crisp and calm. "Already pulling them. You'll have a full report within the hour. FAA Ethics Division has requested a call at 3 o'clock. Do you want me to accept?" Noelle didn't answer right away. Her eyes moved across the room. The guests, the staff, the system that had let this happen. "Yes," she said. "Let them know I'll speak for the group." 10 minutes earlier, Edward had stood in that same spot telling a black woman she didn't belong. Now he didn't know whether to walk away or beg for clarity. But Noelle wasn't finished. She stepped forward. Just once. The distance between her and Edward shrank by 2 feet. But it felt like 2 miles. "You want to know who I am?" she asked him, voice low but commanding. "I'm the person you've been ignoring on paper for the last 4 months. The name you skip over on the memos. The face you've never seen because you assumed I was someone else's assistant." Edward tried to speak. Failed. She continued. "You've built your little domain inside someone else's house, decorated it with rules you wrote for people like you, and rules you weaponized against people like me, and now you're angry because the foundation is shaking." "No," Edward finally snapped. "You're twisting this. I was protecting the brand. That's what we do here. That's the lie you tell yourself," Noelle said. "You weren't protecting the brand. You were protecting your comfort." Behind them, Darren stepped away from the desk entirely. The lounge had gone fully silent. No more whispered recordings, no more fake coughs to mask the tension. Just quiet. And Noelle. It hadn't always been that way. When she was 12, she stood in the same hotel lobby wearing her Sunday best. White blouse, navy skirt. Saddle shoes her mom had polished that morning. Her mother had worked there for nearly 9 years. Guest services, always smiling, always quiet. Noelle had waited by the fireplace while her mother finished a training session for new staff. A manager, someone who looked like Edward but spoke even colder, walked up to her and said, "This space is for guests only. Employees' children wait outside." She remembered standing outside for 40 minutes that day, watching the guests come in, sip from crystal glasses, and get greeted by her mum. That moment lived in her bones. It didn't make her small, it made her sharp. Back in the present, one of the guests finally spoke. A man in a charcoal suit raised his hand, cautiously. "Miss Lancaster." She turned slightly. "My name is Greg Yates. I'm staying on the 12th floor. I just wanted to say I watched what happened and I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that." Noelle didn't nod. She didn't soften. But her voice carried something quieter. "Thank you for not looking away." From the other end of the lounge, the pearl-wearing woman stood up too. "I've been coming here for 18 years, she said. "I've never seen anything like this, but I've also never had a reason to speak up. I do now." Noelle looked at her, really looked. Then she turned back toward Darren. "What's the status of the local audit triggers?" she asked. He swallowed hard. "Active. Gridlock is replicating to 6 sister properties. We're getting alerts already. And staff reactions? Mostly shocked. A few resigned immediately after the broadcast. One GM in Savannah is trying to call corporate." Noelle smiled. Let him call. Outside the Charleston Grand, media vans were already lining up. Inside, the atmosphere had changed entirely. Margot stood against the wall now, her eyes glassy. I didn't mean to, she began. Noelle raised a hand. Stop. Margot did. I'm not interested in your PR apology, Noelle said. You had a choice. When you reached for my arm, that was your decision. You thought I was powerless, and now you're shocked that I'm not. Margot looked down. And don't bother calling legal, Noelle added. They already knew this was coming. They just didn't know when. Back in Washington, Tamara hit send. The internal memo read, Lancaster initiates gridlock. Region 2, freeze active. $96 in service contracts suspended. FAA Hospitality Ethics Council to review full Horizon Sync records. Public statement pending. Back in Charleston, Noelle turned once more to the lounge. If you've ever been mistreated at one of our properties, we're listening now, she said, loud enough for every camera and every guest. I didn't come here to clean up a mess. I came here to burn down a broken system. And with that, she walked past the desk, past the still blinking access terminals, past the people who had tried to push her out, because they had no idea they'd just locked the door on the woman who owned the key. The marble in the Charleston Grand hadn't changed in decades. Same polished white stone, same brass inlays tracing the edges of the floor like an old signature refusing to fade. But today, it felt different under Noelle Lancaster's heels. Because this time, she wasn't a little girl sitting by the wall, waiting for someone to come claim her. She was the one doing the claiming. I'll escort them out, Darren said quietly. His voice trembled a little, but he stood straight. Noelle gave him a nod, just a slight dip of her chin. That was all he needed. He turned to Edward, who was still clutching his now dead access badge like it could be revived by disbelief. Sir, I need you to follow me. Edward didn't move. Margot finally did. She stepped back, placed her clipboard on the desk like it burned her hands, and followed Darren toward the executive hallway. No one applauded. No one needed to. The sound of their footsteps, 3 slow, echoing beats, was enough. Back in the center of the lounge, Noelle took a slow breath. Her phone buzzed once. She checked the message. A simple update from Tamara. Gridlock. Confirmed active in 7 properties. Savannah GM attempting override. Blocked. Richmond flagged for pre-audit trigger. FAA contacting in 17 mines. Noelle's fingers hovered over the reply field, but she didn't type anything yet. Not yet. Instead, her gaze drifted to the far end of the lounge, to the fireplace, to the spot where, 28 years ago, she sat alone for 43 minutes in a starched dress 2 sizes too small. She was 12. Her mother, Clarice, was hosting a guest excellence seminar in one of the back conference rooms. Part of her role in training new staff. Smile. Stand tall. Speak carefully. Noelle had come with her that day because her babysitter cancelled. She'd asked to wait in the lobby. Her mother said, "Yes, just stay quiet. Keep your book open. Don't touch anything." Noelle remembered flipping through Anne of Green Gables, pretending to read, watching guests glide by in suits and heels, trailed by staff with clipboards and champagne flutes. Then, the man appeared. She didn't remember his name, just the voice. "This isn't for staff, kids," he said, like he was pointing out a stain. "You need to wait outside." Noelle had tried to explain. "My mum works here. She said I could wait." He didn't hear it. He didn't care. She ended up sitting on the curb out front. Cars honked. One man asked if she was lost. Another gave her a pitying look and kept walking. When Clarice finally found her, she didn't say anything. She just held Noelle's face in her hands and whispered, "One day, baby, one day, they'll open the door for you." Noelle never forgot it,
but she also never waited for a door again. Back in the lounge, her phone buzzed again. Tamra this time. Audio. Noelle answered. "You're live," Tamra said. "FAA's Ethics Division has confirmed receipt of the audit packet. They've asked to speak with you directly. Video call. Do you want to take it from your suite?" "I'll take it right here," Noelle said. "You sure? I want them to see the flaw they ignored." She walked to the central reception desk, Edward's desk, and plugged in her phone to the mounted screen. The lounge monitors lit up. A government seal appeared in the corner. Then, a face. Director Maeve Donnelly, FAA Ethics Compliance Unit, Compliance. "Miss Lancaster?" The woman nodded, adjusting her glasses. "We received your override documentation. Quite the event." "Not an event," Noelle replied. "A reckoning." "Understood." The director glanced off screen, probably at a compliance officer. "We've reviewed the initial files from Horizon Sync, 7 properties, active violations, 3 escalation logs previously dismissed." 4, Noelle corrected. 1 was misfiled. The director's eyebrows rose. Noelle continued. "I'm submitting a formal request that the FAA Ethics Board open a sector-level review of Region 2 for systemic bias. All LHG properties. I'll provide full admin access for 30 days. And your objective?" Noelle didn't blink. "To set precedent." After the call ended, the room took a breath. Noelle unplugged her phone. Her voice, quiet but firm, returned to the real audience in the room. "We tell ourselves hospitality is about luxury," she said. "But it's not. It's about dignity." A woman with a stroller near the entrance raised her hand. "Excuse me," she said. "Can I ask something?" Noelle turned gently toward her. "You own this hotel?" "Yes." "And you just fired everyone in charge?" "No," Noelle said. "I fired everyone who used power to protect prejudice." The woman paused. "Then, thank you," she said, "because I've been coming here for years, and I've never felt like I was actually welcome until today." Outside, the media was already circling. A local news crew had picked up the live stream from TikTok and posted a headline. "Black CEO reclaims hotel, fires staff over ethics violations, live." Inside, Darren approached again. "We're starting to get emails," he said. "Past guests, staff, even an ex-manager from the Savannah property. He says he's got files." "Forward them all to Tamara," Noelle replied, "and start building a timeline of prior complaints that match the language from today." Darren hesitated. "Is this going to go national?" "It already has," she said. "Now we decide if it becomes permanent." Later that evening, while guests checked in under soft light and fresh staffed desks, Noelle stepped into the presidential suite. She didn't turn on the lights right away. She just stood by the window, looking down at the city she once thought would never let her in. Charleston glowed quietly under street lamps and hanging moss. A different kind of history was being written, one that started with a black girl told to wait outside and ended with a woman who made sure no one ever had to again. Noelle had barely finished her tea when the emails started pouring in. Subject lines stacked like bricks on the screen. "I was told I didn't look like I belonged. They called me ghetto behind my back. I worked there. I saw what they did." By 9:40 a.m. there were over 220 unread messages in the inbox labeled LHG Testimony Intake. Tamara's voice buzzed in her AirPods. "We just hit 110 DMs on the public page and 3 voicemails came into the Charleston Properties main line, all from people saying finally." Noelle stood by the long glass windows of the suite, arms folded, gaze focused on the courtyard below where hotel staff shuffled awkwardly, unsure if their badges still worked. Filter by former employees, she said. Start tagging themes. I want internal language patterns, repeated code phrases, especially anything like don't profile, just observe. Tamara already knew what she was doing. She'd seen this before when Noelle ran the audit on the Miami property last year, but this felt louder, more personal. Noelle clicked into the first message herself. A young woman named Danielle Vega, former front desk agent, 2017 to 2019. Dear Ms. Lancaster, I don't know if this will help, but I kept a few voicemails and emails from back when I was training. I always thought something felt off, but no one ever believed me. I still remember when a guest was refused breakfast because he looked like he wandered in from outside. He was wearing a tailored suit. Attached was a zip folder. Noelle paused, then opened it. Inside were 8 recordings, 5 screenshots, and 1 PDF. A scanned training memo labeled VIP Guest Profiling, Regional GM Notes. She clicked play on the first voicemail. A woman's voice, stern, clipped, filled the room. Danny, I need you to be more mindful of the brand image, okay? If someone comes in wearing Timberlands and no visible badge, they're likely not our clientele. Offer them lobby access. Don't encourage them to linger in premium spaces. Keep it soft, but firm. Use the word policy. Guests don't argue with policy. Noelle's jaw tightened. There it was. The subtle machinery. Not outright bans, not written slurs. Just enough coded language to keep certain people away without making it traceable. Until now. The second audio clip was worse. Oh, that couple last night, the black woman in the gold dress? I moved them to the back corner table. Had to. Can't have the other regulars thinking this place went urban. Tamara had joined via video by this point. She didn't speak, just listened. Eyes narrowed. Clip after clip. Email after email. It became clear. The discrimination wasn't occasional. It was operational. Staff were trained to enforce invisible lines, and when anyone questioned it, they were marked as poor fit for culture. Noelle leaned back in her chair, eyes closed for a moment, letting the voices wash over her like a slow burn. This wasn't just about Charleston. This was a culture embedded across multiple locations, groomed, incentivized, and silently sustained. By noon, Tamara reported. We have testimonies from Savannah, Asheville, Richmond, and DC properties. 5 different states. Same language. Any visuals? Noelle asked. Tamara nodded. 1. Guest video from Richmond. Dated 2 years ago. A young Latino man being asked to leave the executive pool deck for wearing improper attire. He was in tailored swimwear. Meanwhile, a white couple next to him had on gym shorts and beer cans out. Send me a still. It arrived within seconds. The photo showed the young man standing, arms raised slightly in protest. A security guard pointing at him. Behind them, the couple lounged, entirely ignored. Get Danny on a secure call, Noelle said. Now. Tamara patched her through. The screen split. Danny's face appeared, nervous but composed. Hi, she said. Is this really you? It's me, Noelle replied, and I need to ask, did you keep that memo because you sensed something was wrong, or because you knew one day someone would come for it? Danny smiled faintly. A little of both. I didn't have power then. But I hoped someone would. Well, Noelle said, her voice steady, you do now. After the call, Noelle took a deep breath. Her reflection stared back at her in the suite's blackened TV screen. Poised, calm, but tight around the eyes. That same tightness she used to see on her mother's face after long shifts. Clarice never said what happened during those days, but now Noelle was hearing the stories her mother never got to tell through the voices of 100 others. Later that evening, a package arrived at the Charleston Grand addressed to Noelle. No return label. Inside was a folded staff uniform shirt and a note. I worked the night shift at this hotel for 11 years. I was let go the day after I questioned why we always escorted black guests to rooms on the 2nd floor, but not the 7th. I never got a response. Just a silence that stretched into a termination notice. Thank you for breaking that silence. M.H. Noelle placed the shirt in a drawer under her desk. She didn't need trophies, but some truths deserve to be kept. By midnight, she had built a spreadsheet with over 310 entries, categorized, time-stamped, and cross-referenced across 7 properties. A pattern emerged. Certain phrases repeated like coded instructions. Maintain brand comfort. Legacy tier image. Elevated client environment. Use discretion on appearances. They might as well have said, exclude the wrong skin. Tamara messaged one last time that night. You ready to release the report? Noelle didn't reply right away. She scrolled to the top of the spreadsheet, read the first entry again, then the last. Finally, she typed draft version. Label it Volume 1. Because this wasn't ending here. This was only the beginning. The room was silent. Not because no one had anything to say, but because every single regional manager on the screen had just watched a 7-minute compilation of their own decisions, played back with receipts, emails, security footage, and voice recordings from the last 5 years. Noelle sat alone in the Charleston Grand's boardroom. Her elbows rested on the polished walnut table, eyes locked onto the wall of monitors, each showing the face of a general manager from one of the 7 Lancaster Heritage hotels under immediate ethical lockdown. Some looked down. One pretended to take notes. Another, Connor Masters from the Asheville estate, leaned back with folded arms, clearly unimpressed. Let's begin, Noelle said. No small talk. She tapped her iPad and pulled up the first incident log. Asheville property, March the 14th, 2023. A black woman in a tailored navy dress was escorted away from the executive lounge after a server assumed she was waiting for someone. She was our keynote speaker at the Women in Tech Summit and held a Level 4 guest badge. Connor squinted at the screen. That was a misunderstanding. The server was new. Noelle swiped. That server had been with you for 9 months. Her name was Sharon Liu. This is her statement. She was explicitly told to watch for lone outsiders who might sneak in from non-guest groups. Your team labeled that woman an unverified guest in the internal log. You never called to apologize. Connor opened his mouth, then closed it again. Noelle didn't blink. You knew she was a keynote speaker when you saw the morning schedule. You could have corrected it. You didn't. Silence. She turned to the next screen. Savannah, September 6th, 2022. 3 guests were denied breakfast reservations and told the dining area was fully booked. Video footage shows a manager making space for 2 white walk-ins 10 minutes later. The 3 denied were Latino business owners attending the regional equity conference. The GM, Lydia Brandt, looked down. I wasn't on duty that day, she said softly. But you were the one who signed the write-up defending the staff, Noelle said. You called the guests visibly unprepared for upscale brunch environments. One of them was a Forbes-listed CEO. Each manager was forced to face their data, their words, their silence. Some tried to deflect. Some genuinely looked horrified. A few started to apologize. Awkward, stumbling attempts to distance themselves from their decisions. Noel waited until the final screen finished. Washington, D.C., property, December 2021. A black newlywed couple misidentified as unregistered guests during their honeymoon. Then she folded her hands and said one sentence. You have one choice now, reform with us or resign by tonight. No bluster, no threats, just gravity. Connor leaned forward, voice icy. With respect, Ms. Lancaster, is this even legal? You're making moral judgments off internal decisions that followed procedure. This feels personal. Noel smiled, not kindly. You're right, it is personal. She tapped again. The screens changed. Now it showed a real-time map of the Horizon Sync ethics grid. Red flags flared across properties like heat signatures. Noel stood and walked toward the screens. This isn't just about isolated moments. It's systemic. Your names aren't on trial. Your cultures are. You trained people to hide discrimination under brand identity. You rewarded silence. That ends now. Someone whispered into their mic. What's your actual plan? Noel didn't miss a beat. Starting tomorrow, every heritage property will onboard the Lancaster Standard, a federally registered ethical hospitality charter drafted by my team, reviewed by the FAA Hospitality Ethics Council, and binding across all high-capacity commercial lodging partners. A few jaws dropped. That's overreach, Lydia said. You'll lose partners. No, Noel said calmly. You'll lose them if you don't adapt. I've already secured conditional pre-approval from 6 ESG investment boards. Once we implement, Lancaster Heritage will qualify for 128 Mallas in new ethics-aligned capital, but only if we commit to it in full. Connor scoffed. You can't force compliance. Force? I'm not, she said. I'm offering alignment. She turned back to the screen. Those who sign by 6 a.m. tomorrow stay, full resource support, leadership training, PR protection, and system control under Horizon Sync for real-time accountability. Those who don't? Her voice cooled. You'll be off the grid. Entirely. Revoked dashboard access. Disconnected from internal operations. I'll appoint interim ethics managers until further hiring is complete. Silence again. Then, one by one, some managers began to nod. Lydia raised her hand. I'm in. 2 others followed, but Connor still stared cold. You built this empire off of our operational compliance, he said. You really want to burn it down? Noel stepped closer to the screen. If it was built on silent cruelty and reputation over dignity, then yes, I'll burn the whole damn thing. 30 seconds passed. Connor disconnected from the call. Noel didn't flinch. She turned back to the rest. You'll receive new onboarding packets by midnight. You're not being replaced, you're being rebuilt, Tamara messaged her silently. FAA board wants to observe rollout. Senator Baer just requested a call. Noel smiled. The storm had only just begun, and she wasn't backing down. The ballroom was empty. Not the kind of empty after a wedding with confetti still clinging to the floor and music echoing off the chandeliers. No, this was the kind of empty that remembered. Noel stood at the far end of the grand room where it had all started just 48 hours ago. The same room where a white junior manager with a clipboard and an inflated sense of control had told her she didn't belong. Now the clipboard was gone. So was the manager. The room had been restored to its pristine elegance. Fresh linens, polished banisters, the scent of lavender faint in the air. But the silence held memory like stone holds heat. Noel walked slowly along the carpeted aisle between velvet chairs, stopping at the very spot where she'd once been told, "Ma'am, this space is reserved." Her fingers grazed the top of a mahogany chair. Her lips parted, but she said nothing. There was nothing left to prove. And yet her mother's voice echoed in the back of her mind. "They'll never see you coming, baby. So when you arrive, stand tall like you were always meant to be there." She moved toward the corner where the curtains were slightly parted. Behind them stood the elevator that led to the private service corridor, the one her mother used to take when working night shifts here 30 years ago. Clarice Lancaster, housekeeping, double shifts, 9 to 40s an hour. Noelle sat down on the window ledge, looking out into the Charleston sky. She didn't cry, but something in her chest unraveled a little. Not pain, not pride. Something else. Grief, maybe, for the years wasted pretending civility would earn respect. Knock, knock. A gentle knock on the double doors behind her. Noelle turned, surprised. It was a young black woman in a green housekeeping uniform, pushing a linen cart. She had thick curls pulled back into a bun, AirPods in one ear, and a tired smile on her face. "Sorry to interrupt. I didn't know someone was still in here. I'm just doing the late evening service reset." Noelle nodded. "No worries. You okay?" the girl asked, hesitating. "You look like you've had a day." Noelle blinked, caught off guard by the kindness. "Yeah, it's been a day. You need fresh towels or anything before I roll out?" she asked, already pulling open the bottom drawer of her cart. Noelle chuckled softly. "I think I'm good, thank you." The woman paused and glanced around. "It's weird, right? This ballroom. Every time I come in here late, it feels like it's watching me, like it remembers stuff." Noelle stared at her. "You ever felt that way about a room before?" the woman added. And that was it. The exact sentence. The sentence that broke her. Noelle lowered her head, and before she could stop herself, a tear slipped down her cheek. The woman noticed. "Oh, shoot. Are you okay?" "I didn't mean—" "No," Noelle said quietly, waving her hand. "You're fine. You're just the first person today who's spoken to me like I'm not a symbol." The woman looked confused. "Sorry, I don't get it." Noelle stood, walked toward her, and extended her hand. "I'm Noelle. Noelle Lancaster." The housekeeper froze. Her eyes widened. "Wait. Like the Lancaster?" Noelle smiled softly. "Yeah. This hotel used to be my mother's dream. I just reclaimed it." There was a pause. Then the woman did something unexpected. She reached out, shook Noelle's hand, and said, "Well, damn, about time someone did." Noelle laughed through the lump in her throat. The woman pulled out a folded cloth napkin from her apron and handed it to her. "I don't got tissues, but this'll do." "Thank you," Noelle said, wiping her face. "I'm Maya, by the way," the woman said. "I've only been here 4 months, but my aunt worked here for a decade, got laid off during the pandemic. No severance." Noelle's face tightened again. She always said this place was haunted, not by ghosts, but by people who got erased. "I'm trying to unhaunt it," Noelle whispered. "Well," Maya said, "you're off to a good start." After Maya left, Noelle stood in the center of the ballroom again. She looked up. The chandelier above flickered slightly as the air conditioning kicked on. She closed her eyes, breathed in, breathed out. Later that night, she sent a text to Tamara. "Tomorrow, I want the housekeeping and kitchen staff moved to the top of the ethics priority list. Immediate pay review. Audit their exit records too. I want names of everyone let go without explanation." Tamara replied in less than a minute. "On it." At midnight, Noelle sat at her desk in the top-floor suite and reopened a private folder labeled Clarkives. It was filled with scanned photos. Her mother in a pressed green housekeeping uniform, old pay stubs, handwritten notes about dreams. One day, own a place like this. One day, make it fair. She added one final photo to the folder, a selfie Maya had asked to take with her. Right there in the ballroom, two women standing in power, one from the past, one now shaping the future. Noelle renamed the file Power in Silence JPG. Tomorrow would be the day the world saw what she'd built. But tonight, she just needed the quiet and a room that finally welcomed her back. At exactly 7:30 a.m., a notification pinged on the Lancaster Heritage Group's internal dashboard. Then it hit inboxes, then Slack channels, then LinkedIn, then Twitter. By 7:36 a.m., it was everywhere. A public video statement from Noelle Lancaster, marked urgent, internal plus external distribution, duration 2 minutes and 12 seconds, tone calm, controlled, devastating. The video opened with silence. No intro music, no branding, just Noelle standing in front of a plain backdrop inside the Charleston Grand. Hair pulled back, no makeup, dressed in a simple black blouse, no jewelry. Her eyes didn't blink much. She spoke directly into the camera. Yesterday, I made the decision to terminate the executive leadership of 7 Lancaster Heritage properties. This was not impulsive. This was overdue. She paused. Over the last 12 months, our internal ethics system, Horizon Sync, flagged 178 verified violations of guest dignity and anti-bias standards. 178 moments where someone, usually black or brown, was made to feel like they didn't belong in a space we promised would welcome them. No one intervened. No one corrected it. Until now. She continued. Effective immediately, we are implementing the Lancaster Standard across our national properties, a new ethics framework built to ensure every guest, staff member and human being is treated with equity, decency and dignity. And yes, it is mandatory. Then came the final sentence, the one that would go viral. Hospitality without humanity is just theatre, and I didn't rebuild this empire to entertain the powerful while silencing the rest. Fade to black. By 8:10 a.m., hashtags were trending. Hatch Lancaster Standard at not just hotel business, power in hospitality. By 9:20 a.m., the video had 3.2 million views across Instagram, Twitter, /X, and TikTok. By noon, Good Morning America, CNN, Forbes, and NBC Nightly News had picked it up. And by 2:43 p.m., Noelle's name was on every news outlet's top headline feed. The world wasn't quiet. It roared. Some praised her. Finally, a CEO with a spine. This is what real DEI looks like. Less panels, more power. Black women don't just belong in the room. They own the damn room now. Others, not so much. This is cancel culture run wild. She just fired people for doing their jobs. That's illegal. What's next? Loyalty oaths for hotel check-in clerks? Noelle watched it unfold in silence from her office suite. Her team kept updating her every 30 minutes. We've gained 18K new followers on LinkedIn in 3 hours. Requests for interviews from Time, Harvard Business Review, and Bloomberg. Board of Ethics wants a call tonight. PR says to prep for pushback from the Hospitality Alliance. But she didn't flinch. This was never meant to be safe. It was meant to be heard. At 4:12 p.m., an anonymous Twitter account leaked one of the Horizon Sync data snapshots. It showed a heat map of bias-based guest complaints clustered in 7 cities. Some were small. A black teen denied access to rooftop dining unless accompanied by a white guardian. Some were bigger. A disabled Latina woman told to use the delivery entrance instead of the lobby. But together, the red dots told one story. This wasn't rare. It was routine. That night, Anderson Cooper said on CNN, "This isn't just about one CEO or one chain of hotels. This is about the systemic rot that comes when hospitality is designed to serve only those who look a certain way." And today, someone hit reset. Meanwhile, Noelle sat alone again. This time, in the Charleston Grand's rooftop lounge. The same space where 2 years earlier, she'd been denied entry by a host who assumed she was someone's assistant. Tonight, there was no host, just her and a glass of water. Tamara sat across from her. "You do know you just kicked the hornet's nest of an entire industry, right?" she said, sipping her tea. Noelle smiled faintly. "Good. They've been asleep long enough." Tamara exhaled slowly. "You also just made yourself the most controversial figure in hospitality. You'll be called a radical, a corporate bully, an activist in a suit." Noelle looked out at the skyline. "They can call me whatever they want, but they won't call me silent." Across the country, other CEOs were watching. So were senators. And more importantly, so were former housekeepers, luggage carriers, night porters, maintenance staff, people whose names were never in the press. Until now. One reply to the video hit Noelle harder than any of the news anchors. It came from a woman named Lords, former head of housekeeping at the DC location. The message was short. It simply said, "I see you. And for the first time in 15 years, I feel like someone sees me back." Noelle read it 5 times. Then she put her phone down. Outside, the city buzzed on. But inside that rooftop lounge, she let the weight fall off her shoulders just enough to breathe. Because tomorrow, the work would continue, and she'd need both hands free. The email hit her desk at exactly 9:02 a.m. Subject line: Urgent. HHA public statement on Lancaster Heritage Group. Sender: Hospitality Holdings Alliance. A, the largest hotel lobbying group in the country. Noelle read the first line and let out a short breath through her nose. "We are deeply concerned by the actions of Ms. Noelle Lancaster, whose recent executive firings have destabilized market confidence, caused undue disruption to long-standing partnerships, and introduced what we believe to be a dangerous precedent of internal surveillance." There it was, the spin. Within an hour, a dozen news outlets had picked it up. Forbes ran with the headline, "Industry in Chaos. Lancaster's ethics system sparks panic among hotel executives." CNBC chimed in, "Revolution or overreach? Black CEOs firing spree shakes the hospitality sector." Fox Business didn't hold back. Woke tyranny in the boardroom. When CEOs play God. Noelle closed her laptop. "They're scared," she muttered. Tamara barged in, holding her phone. "Have you seen what Barron Partners just posted?" Noelle raised an eyebrow. Barron was one of the firm's legacy investors. "Deep pockets, no vision," Tamara read aloud. "We respectfully request that the Lancaster Heritage Board reconsider the recent executive terminations and re-establish market neutrality, or we will begin a review of our capital commitments for Q4. Noelle leaned back in her chair. "Let them pull. I'll replace them in 2 days. Tamara didn't look so sure. "Noelle, this isn't just bad PR. It's a coordinated campaign. You've poked a system that's been rotting for decades. They won't go quietly." Later that day, the attacks got personal. An anonymous blog leaked an edited version of Noelle's college thesis, falsely claiming she once supported segregated spaces for restorative justice. Someone posted an old, out-of-context video of her arguing with a hotel guest who turned out to be a friend, framing it as CEO berates paying customer. Comment sections exploded. She's a fraud. Power trip. This is why DEI is failing. Imagine a white CEO doing this and keeping their job. Noelle didn't flinch, but her staff did. 2 mid-level directors resigned. A partner hotel in Arizona issued a statement distancing themselves, and someone leaked internal data to a pro-industry outlet trying to discredit the Lancaster Standard. At 7:43 p.m., Noelle sat in her suite, staring at the blinking cursor on a blank document. Her mind buzzed. Was she doing the right thing? Had she moved too fast? Then her phone buzzed, a new message from an anonymous sender. We've been watching. We have more. Attached, a file labeled Horizon Sync Internal Export Ghost Cases, zip. Her heart skipped. She opened it. Inside were 37 case logs, flagged but never acted on, dating back 2 years. They included names, screenshots, time-stamped recordings, handwritten testimonies from whistleblowers who'd left or been pushed out. And suddenly, the doubt vanished. Noelle called Tamara, then patched in legal compliance and comms. I want every case verified. I want witnesses contacted. I want a team ready to scrub names and protect victims. But then we go live. Tamara blinked. Wait, what do you mean go live? I mean, we publish everything. Dead silence. You want to release internal ethics violations to the public? Yes. We say what they're afraid to admit. This industry isn't broken because of a few bad actors. It's broken because it was designed to protect them. To 4 hours later, at 8:00 a.m., a new page quietly went live on the Lancaster Heritage Group website. Title: Horizons Inc. Ethics Transparency Portal. Inside, aggregated data from 142 anonymous case reports, redacted transcripts of guest interviews, a real-time dashboard showing ethics ratings of each hotel under their banner, a personal letter from Noelle. We can't fix what we hide, so we're choosing light. The internet exploded again, but this time the response was different. A tweet from a former bellhop at a competing chain. Damn. Noelle just did what our entire HR department never had the guts to do. A hospitality professor wrote, "This is history. Transparency like this doesn't exist in corporate America." A single line from Ava DuVernay got 3 million likes. She didn't burn the system. She opened the blinds. Behind the scenes, lawsuits were threatened. An emergency session of the HHA was called. Investor meetings turned into firestorms. But Noelle stayed calm. She told her team, "Let them throw the first brick. We'll build the foundation beneath it." That night, while the world debated and dissected every inch of the ethics portal, Noelle got a quiet message in her inbox. Subject line: I was fired for reporting racism. Thank you for not forgetting us. No signature, just a screenshot of an old paycheck and a faded name tag that said Clarice, her mother. Someone had dug into the archives and restored her employee record, adding her name to the system. Noelle stared at it for a long time. Then she whispered, "They tried to erase you, Mama, but not anymore." At exactly 9:00 a.m., the boardroom at Lancaster Heritage's New York headquarters filled with the weight of silence. Noelle stood at the head of the table. No blazer, no jewelry, just a charcoal blouse and calm defiance in her eyes. 12 of the firm's Class A shareholders sat before her. Some she'd known since she was 25. Some still refused to believe the girl from Baltimore now held their fate in her hands. "Let's be clear," she said. "This isn't a meeting. This is a reckoning." She tapped her tablet. A projection lit up behind her. Horizons Inc. live data feed. 63 hotels, 12 months. 2012 ethics flags. No one blinked. Then the screen shifted. Category breakdown. Racial bias. 41% gender discrimination. 18% disability access issues. 14% staff retaliation against guests. 11% other. 16%. We didn't fail a few guests, Noel said. We failed thousands. A man in a navy suit. Martin Green. Old school hotelier. Legacy investor. Cleared his throat. And what exactly do you want us to do, Noel? You've humiliated the brand. Public sentiment is a roller coaster, and you're demanding we... What? Apologize? Noel didn't flinch. No. I'm demanding you evolve. She tapped again. A new slide appeared. The Lancaster Standard. Final charter draft. Mandatory real-time Horizons Inc. Monitoring in all properties. Publicly accessible ethics dashboards. Updated monthly executive bonuses tied to guest dignity metrics. Third-party audits every quarter. Immediate suspension protocol for verified abuse incidents. Green scoffed. This will kill profitability. Noel's voice sharpened. It'll kill complicity. If that ruins your business model, you've been in the wrong business. Silence. Then she added, every property that refuses to sign the new standard loses brand rights, effective next quarter. One shareholder raised a hand. Even our London expansion? Especially London. I won't export silence. Outside that boardroom, a second wave was already crashing. An independent ethics consortium had reviewed the Horizons Inc. data Noel released. Their findings were devastating. Out of 142 verified incidents, 124 had either eyewitness corroboration, time-stamped evidence, or consistent patterns across locations. That was 87% credibility. In an industry where most cases vanished into HR black holes, the public's reaction was nuclear. CNN aired a primetime special, Hotels, Harm, and the Hidden Data They Tried to Bury. BuzzFeed released a digital docuseries called Room 306 using guest interviews pulled from Noel's archive. And a Change.org petition began circulating. Mandate the Lancaster Standard across all major hotel chains. By 5 p.m., it had over 920,000 signatures. Meanwhile, Noel moved fast. She summoned the executive leads from all 63 properties and handed each a manila folder. Inside, a one-page contract. Title, Voluntary Commitment to the Lancaster Standard. No signature meant removal from leadership by month's end. Some hesitated, some signed instantly. But the real battle was with the 6 outside CEOs Noel had quietly invited into a closed-door summit that evening. They arrived cautiously, some suspicious, all powerful, representing Belmont Resorts, Skyshore Suites, Haven Line Dunes, International Venture Lux, Sterling Stay. Noel didn't flatter, didn't smile, didn't soften. She dropped a single sentence that echoed for days. If you want access to Horizons Inc. or any joint venture with us, you sign the standard or you explain to your guests why you chose silence. The room froze. Then Juni's International's CEO, Elena Cordoba, spoke first. I've waited years for someone to do this. I'm in. Then Sterling Stay, then Skyshore. Belmont hesitated, then walked out. Noel didn't chase. 3 partnerships down. 3 to go, she whispered. By the time dawn broke the next morning, 3 hotel giants had made public commitments. We are proud to adopt the Lancaster Standard. Headlines hailed it as the first domino in an industry that had long ignored its ethical blind spots. Hospitality Weekly called it the most disruptive ethics overhaul since the ADA. And as the world stirred, Noel stood once more in front of the Charleston Grand, the place where this all started. She faced the same doorman who hadn't recognized her weeks ago. This time, he opened the door with a bowed head and whispered, "Welcome back, Ms. Lancaster." Inside, she walked past the front desk, past the now empty manager's podium, and stood in the middle of the lobby, alone. She looked up at the towering chandelier above and let herself feel it. Not just victory, but transformation. Because this wasn't just about her. It was about Clarice. It was about every invisible name badge, every unheard voice behind a service smile. And finally, they were being seen. 1 week later, Washington, D.C. pulsed with media vans, floodlights, and murmurs. At the FAA Hospitality Ethics Council headquarters, the buzz wasn't just political, it was seismic. For the first time in history, a private CEO had been summoned not for wrongdoing, but for rewriting the rules. And now, the nation wanted to hear her. Inside the marble-paneled chamber, the room was packed. Senators, federal regulators, airline executives, hotel magnates, ethics officers from 21 states, and behind them, cameras, reporters, and a live stream audience of 1.6 million. Noel Lancaster stood at the center podium, flanked by 2 flags, one American, one bearing the council's insignia. She looked composed, but not polished. Her hair in a simple bun, a soft grey suit. No notes. She didn't need them. "Thank you for having me," she began, her voice steady. "But let's be honest, this isn't about me. It's about the guests you never see in press releases, the employees who quit quietly, the families that carry invisible bruises from how we treat each other behind front desks, closed doors, and corporate silence." The room leaned in. She tapped her watch. A screen behind her lit up. The Lancaster Standard, Ethics Data Snapshot, 12 weeks, 63 hotels, 2,412 incident reports, 87% verification rate, 19 leadership resignations, 6 hotel chains adopting the system, 1 public dashboard. "What you see here isn't just numbers," she continued. "It's the mirror we've avoided holding up for too long." A senator asked, "What exactly are you proposing we do?" Noel didn't hesitate. "Make the standard federal. Mandate real-time ethics tracking across all FAA-licensed hospitality partners. Tie funding and certification to dignity scores. Give guests the right to see who they're trusting. In short," she said, "make human decency enforceable." There was a pause, then a question from the council chair. "And if companies resist?" Noel gave a faint smile. "Then they're free to explain to investors why transparency scared them." 3 hours of discussion followed. Some objected, some feared bureaucracy. One executive muttered, "Orwellian." But none could ignore what had already happened. Flights rerouted to hotels that had signed the standard ratings of compliant properties, rising 34% public trust in hospitality, jumping for the first time in a decade. When the council broke for deliberation, the world held its breath. 37 minutes later, the decision came down. Unanimous approval. The FAA would integrate the Lancaster Standard into its National Hospitality Certification Framework. Starting next fiscal year, every FAA-approved hotel chain would be required to install real-time ethics monitoring, publish quarterly dignity audits, and submit to independent reviews. When the news hit social media, it took just 22 minutes for Lancaster Standard passed to trend number 1 on X. By nightfall, 4 hotel CEOs resigned, 3 publicly apologized, 2 investment firms announced divestment from non-compliant chains, and on CNN's business ticker, 5 bold white words scrolled quietly past the bottom of the screen. Noelle Lancaster named industry game changer. But Noelle didn't linger in DC. She left before sunset and boarded a quiet commercial flight back to Charleston. No press, no entourage, just one worn leather notebook in her bag. Her mother's. The next morning, she walked into the Clarisse Grand Hotel alone. No cameras, no speeches. She wore all white, soft linen pants, cream blouse, and low heels that made no sound on the polished floor. She passed the concierge, the reception, the elevators. Every space now bore discreet signs that read, "This property complies with the Lancaster standard." And then she reached it. The ballroom. It was the place her mother used to clean after weddings. The same floor where Clarisse once slipped on spilled champagne and kept cleaning with a bruised hip. Now, it held a different name on the brass plaque outside. The Clarisse Lancaster Honor Hall. She stepped inside. The hall was empty. Light poured in from 2 massive skylights overhead, catching the gold trim on every arch and moulding. At the far end stood a sculpture. Clarisse, apron, name tag, kind smile, and the stance of a woman who had endured. Below it, a line etched into glass. Service is not silence. Dignity is not optional. Noelle stood there for a long time. She ran her fingers along the sculpture's base, then walked to the center of the hall, directly beneath the largest skylight. She tilted her head up, letting the sun warm her face. A single guest passed through behind her, pausing as they recognized her silhouette. The man whispered, "Your mama would be proud." Noelle turned slightly, not fully, just enough to smile, then whispered, "She didn't build this for me. She built it for everyone who has never seen." Outside, the hotel buzzed. Inside, she stood still, not as a CEO, not as a disruptor, but as a daughter. And this time, no one would ever push her out again. 1 month later, the hotel industry had a new North Star. They didn't call it hospitality anymore. They called it Lancaster Grade. Major hotel chains rewrote their codes of conduct overnight. Training centers scrambled to update manuals, and 3 Ivy League business schools launched new ethics modules titled The Lancaster Standard, Rebuilding Trust in Service Industries. But Noelle stayed quiet. No press tour, no branded rollout, no merch. She let the silence say what press couldn't. Real change doesn't need applause. At the Clarisse Grand, things had changed too. The lobby felt warmer. The front desk no longer hid behind fake stone and bulletproof smiles. Now it was open, human, sunlit. And standing behind it, in her crisp navy blazer and nameplate that read Maya, was the new hire. Maya Johnson, 23, fresh out of college, had left a lower-paying job at a chain resort after watching Noelle's FAA hearing on her phone in the break room. She said, "Dignity should be enforceable," Maya had told her mother that night. And, for the first time, I believed it could be. 3 days later, she applied to the Clarisse Grand. 2 weeks later, she was hired. Today would be her 3rd day on shift. At exactly 8:05 a.m., Noelle stepped through the front doors unannounced. She wore a dark trench coat, no makeup, hair pulled into a soft knot. To guests, she could have been anyone, but Maya knew her instantly, not because of the face, but the walk, grounded, unapologetic, like she owned the room and the responsibility that came with it. Maya straightened her back. "Good morning, Ms. Lancaster," she said, not too loud, not nervous, just solid. Noelle paused. She looked Maya over for half a second longer than expected. "You're new," Noelle said. "Yes, ma'am. What's your name?" "Maya." Noelle raised a brow. "That's a good name." Then, to Maya's surprise, Noelle didn't just nod and walk away. She stepped behind the counter, removed her coat, and rolled up her sleeves. "Let's see how we're doing today." Maya blinked. "You want to do the shift?" "No," Noelle said, smirking. "I want to watch how you do it." And just like that, the founder of Lancaster Heritage Group was standing beside a 23-year-old front desk agent, shadowing her. Over the next 2 hours, Noelle listened to Maya's words, to her tone, to the subtle energy shifts when a guest hesitated, when a child cried, when a tech bro rolled in with complaints. Noelle didn't interrupt, didn't correct. She asked one question, softly, after each guest. "Did you feel like they left better than they arrived?" By noon, Maya had learned more than she had in 3 years of customer service. Not from policies, but from presence. And when a disabled veteran came in with a service dog, unsure of accommodations, Maya didn't flinch. She pulled up the New Horizon Sync dashboard, showed him the ADA compliant suite layout, booked him without hesitation, and asked if he'd prefer a room near the elevator or with more sunlight. The man teared up. Noelle said nothing. She didn't need to. Later that day, as Maya prepared to clock out, she found a folded note on the counter with her name written in sharp, slanted script. It read, "Don't lose your softness. It's your strength." N. That night, Noelle walked alone through the empty ballroom again. She paused by her mother's statue. This time, she wasn't crying. She was calm, settled. The work wasn't finished, but the foundation was finally firm. Before she left, she passed the front desk one last time. Maya was just finishing up for the day, adjusting her collar, about to leave. She looked up, startled, but Noelle just walked past, graceful, silent. Then Maya did something unexpected. She stood tall, straightened her spine, and with no cameras, no audience, she bowed her head toward Noelle, not out of submission, but recognition, respect, gratitude, like a silent promise. "I see what you built. I won't let it fade." Noelle didn't turn around, but she felt it. And somewhere, deep in her chest, something softened, just for a moment. Then she stepped into the Charleston night, streetlights flickering like gold above her head, not as the woman they once kicked out, but as the architect of a better welcome. 3 months later, the map of American hospitality had changed permanently. The FAA's Lancaster standard was no longer a controversial policy. It was a litmus test. Hotels that adopted it proudly displayed digital plaques at their entrances, their dignity scores rising in real time like stock tickers. Those who resisted, they bled guests and reputation. 3 major CEOs who had publicly dismissed the standard, calling it corporate theatre, had resigned within weeks. One apologized on national television, barely able to hold eye contact with the host. Across social media, influencers shared videos of staff kindness, transparency dashboards, and quiet moments where empathy replaced fake smiles. "It's not luxury if it's not humane," one post read. Lancaster Standard hit 20 million views on TikTok. Airlines began asking if they could apply the framework to their lounges. Cruise lines called, even hospitals whispered interest. But at the Clarice Grand, where it had all begun, the world moved with softer footsteps. Noelle rarely appeared now, not because she'd withdrawn, but because she knew the house stood. It didn't need her every minute. She'd built something that breathed without her. On a crisp Saturday morning, Maya Johnson stood at the front desk, watching the hotel's rhythm move like a living thing. Guests came and went. Laughter echoed from a family checking in. A violinist played in the lounge. A new program Noel had introduced to remind guests that stillness was luxury too. Maya smiled. At 10:42 a.m., she noticed a figure across the street. A small girl, maybe 8 years old. Brown skin, oversized jacket, ripped sneakers. She stood perfectly still, her hands tucked under her sleeves, her eyes locked on the front doors of the Clarice Grand. Not begging, not moving, just looking, like she was imagining herself inside. Maya watched her for a while, unsure if she should wave, call out, alert security, or just let the moment be. But then she remembered something Noel once said. The worst thing we teach poor children isn't that they have less. It's that they don't belong. So Maya walked out, slow, steady. She crossed the marble floor, pushed open the glass doors, and stepped onto the sidewalk. The girl startled, as if caught. Maya crouched slightly. Soft voice. "Hey, you okay?" The girl nodded quickly, eyes still fixed on the entrance behind Maya. "You like hotels?" The girl finally looked at her. "I've never been in one. Not even the lobby." A shake of the head. "You ever wanted to?" She hesitated, then nodded. Maya smiled. "You want to come see it?" The girl blinked, unsure if she heard right. Maya opened the door wide and stepped aside. The glass reflected the morning sun, casting gold all around them. The girl hesitated, then stepped in slowly. One foot, then another. Her eyes widened as the ceiling opened up into a dome, as light flooded in through arched windows, as a bellhop tipped his hat and smiled. The girl gasped softly. Maya leaned in. "That's the Clarice Grand." "Who's Clarice?" Maya smiled again. "Someone like you, who started at the door." And as the child walked deeper into the hotel, feet quiet against the velvet rug, Maya stayed by the entrance, watching her, letting her feel it, letting her know she belonged. The lobby doors turned slowly on their axis behind her, sunlight casting a soft amber glow across the marble. Maya looked up at the sign above the entrance. Clarice Grand, a heritage of dignity. Then turned back inside. She had a desk to return to and a future to help open. One quiet welcome at a time. If someone once opened a door for you, even just a kind word or a chance, tell us where it happened. Drop it in the comments. Let's make the lobby bigger for someone else. Or simply, tell us where you're watching from. You never know who's reading and feels seen.